Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports.
Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports with Tyler Drake and Lauren Koval.
Bird Gang, we're back. I know it's been a little bit of a layover after the season, but we are officially back. Cardinals Corner, I'm Tyler Drake. That's Lauren Koval. Another edition on the way. Hope everybody has had a good offseason so far. And yes, I know I say offseason, but clearly the NFL is not sleeping, and especially when it comes to the Arizona Cardinals. But before we dive into all of that, Lauren, how we doing today? I'm glad to be back in the studio. I've had a little bit of paternity leave that I had banked up that I used, so blame me if you guys want to get mad. Blame me. It's all my fault. But how you doing, Lauren?
I'm doing well, but more importantly, how is baby Baker doing?
He's good. He's a monster. I think he's got a little bit of a cold right now, so I'm hoping he gets over that. But yeah, he's growing like a weed. Brady is very much a little too loving, I guess I should say.
Okay.
Got to make sure she's not smothering the kid every once in a while because she loves him so much. But yeah, doing great there. Mackenzie's doing great as well. Love you, Mackenzie. Thanks for keeping everybody afloat while I'm here. But yeah, so anything been happening since season ended for you? Just a lot of Burns and Gambo?
A lot of Burns and Gambo, a lot of producing, a lot of good sports stuff happening in what normally is kind of an off-season push for us, but not really.
Oh, yeah, especially with that NBA trade deadline coming this week. And
ever looming.
WM Phoenix Open is this week as well. I'm wearing the shirt from last year. So if anybody's going out there, be safe. It's going to be a party, but be safe.
Also track you down.
Also track me down. I'll be out there for the Pro-Am, so hopefully we will have something with Jonathan Gannon there, so be sure to look out for that. Be out there Thursday, kind of taking in everything, and then Friday we will be out there working the tournament. So looking forward to it. Love golf. That's one of my passions. So it's always a good time out there. But let's switch it to the Cardinals because holy cow, it's been busy, especially when we're looking at the coaching staff. A lot of assistants heading elsewhere. And let's just start with the one that we heard today, Spencer Whipple, pass game specialist. He is heading to the Jags as their quarterbacks coach. Dude is aware of many hats for that franchise. Let me tell you, 6 years that he's been here was with Cliff, was with Jonathan Gannon, and really went from quality control to pass game coordinator. But he had also running backs coach in there, interim, this, and this. Also was the play caller in 2021 when Cliff had COVID. They won that game against Cleveland. I think a lot of people put him on their radar after that. So shout out to Spencer. He was always great talking with me. Training camp, I talked to him this past season. You could tell that he really loved just kind of learning the ins and outs of being a coach and learning from other coaches to kind of fine tune his own scheme or thoughts. So really looking forward to see what he can do with Trevor Lawrence there in Jacksonville for sure.
And one of the rare holdovers from Cliff's coaching staff to Jonathan Gannon's, watching those adjustments happen for this team in the way that this is not a Cliff run team. This is not an offense that looks like it's a Cliff run offense. This is JG and Whipple being adapted to fit that kind of scheme for them.
Yeah, so I think his trajectory is going to continue to shoot up there, and we'll see what goes there. But another one, Virginia Tech got Cardinals inside linebackers coach Sam Seifkis, so that is another big loss there. I think Mac Wilson didn't go out there and straight say it, but he just had crying emojis after the news came out, so I'm sure that was towards that, said he loved working with him. So another one of those where it's just like, hey, there's another assistant from the Cardinals going elsewhere. But I think the big one for me, and obviously we've got Derek LeBlanc, team has reportedly moved on from him, so we don't really know the ins and outs there, but they did go out and hire a new guy. We'll get to the hiring soon. Last one, though. This one is probably the biggest one. Clayton Adams, he leaves to go take the Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator role. Big hire for the Cowboys. He was a great piece for this Cardinals offensive line. Really worked with Paris Johnson and the young guys, bringing them along, so that's got to be the biggest loss for me. Easily.
A Cowboys team that now has an entirely new look to their offense, a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator. And they're going, all right, figure it out. We'll see what can happen for this team. Once again, looking like Jerry Jones is trying to make moves while abstaining from taking any of the blame whatsoever for the failures of the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
But to me, that is the greatest loss that this Cardinals team suffered. It had been reported that it was going to happen for a few days. Once the news came down, I don't think anybody was surprised, but it doesn't make the loss any less.
No, for sure. So with that, though, we've got some additions. Obviously, Spencer Whipple being as new and fresh as it is, nobody there yet for a passing game specialist. We'll see if maybe that position evolves into something else or however they use that moving forward. But with offensive line, they now turn to Justin Fry, Ohio State. Immediate connection to Paris Johnson Jr., immediate connection to John Gaines, having spent some time at UCLA too. Really like that hire. What do you think just on the surface? I know we haven't yet talked to him. The Cardinals have not yet made it official, but all signs point to him being the guy.
Another one that when you look at this year's draft, there's some Ohio State players coming out that you've got a little bit of interest in. Those national champs, see what they can do. We know that Paris basically recruited Marvin Harrison Jr. and was like, come on over to the Cardinals. Let's see if he can get another endorsement in this year's draft and send another Buckeye on over to the team. He also had the availability to leave Ohio State following Chip Kelly returning to the NFL, which I don't think anybody saw that move. NFL to college, back to the NFL, an interesting move for him. So because of that availability, the Cardinals could go out there and get somebody to fill this. And I'm very interested to see if they sort of use this youthful connection that they have, because we've seen this Cardinals team use it before. We saw JG go out there and get Kaiser White in the same sort of way. Come on over to the Cardinals. I'm leaving.
Yep. And like you just mentioned, ArizonaSports.com, I wrote a story just kind of reacting to the offensive line coach addition and Josh Simmons, Donovan Jackson, two guys that could easily be on the radar, especially Jackson. He's got a lot of versatility there. So I am definitely looking at those guys the rest of this draft cycle just to see how they go up and down the board, how they shake out, because obviously the Cardinals do need some help along the offensive line, especially guard, but tackle wouldn't hurt either, especially with some of the free agents and Jonah Williams coming back from injury-riddled season. So very interested to see how that all shakes out. And then you move to the defensive line. I'm going to butcher it, and I'm sorry. I'm going to get it right, but I'm going to butcher it. Winston De La Thibaudere.
I'm sure that was flawless.
De La Thibaudere.
There you go.
I'm going to say it a million times. I'll get it down. I don't even think that's the right way to say it, but that's how I saw it in the pronunciation. We're going with it. He comes over from Minnesota. I'm very interested to see what he can do with a guy like Darius Robinson. And whatever happens, whoever else they're bringing in along that defensive line, how can they continue to be teachers? Because I think that's a big thing with Jonathan Gannon. He wants guys that aren't just coaches, they're really good teachers. And I think that's been something that Adams had, Cephas had, Whip had. So how do they mold that into a way, and not saying take anything from LeBlanc, I thought he was a great teacher as well with Darius, but how can he get Darius to that next step and get some of these guys like Dante Stills who has flashed to that next step? That's going to be something I'm going to be looking for.
We see a lot of leaders for the Arizona Cardinals come from the defensive side of the ball. James Conner excluded. I would say he's the offensive leader over there, but most of the time it's a defensive leader on this team. We see that with Buda. We see that with multiple different players. And with that in mind, I'll be interested to see how he can adjust to sort of having the more prominent side of the football, the one that gets a little bit more attention for the Cardinals in the sense of you have all the pieces that you need. Can you make it work?
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a lot of housekeeping for a lot of assistants. We'll see. And that's not even talking about Petzing. Drew Petzing getting an interview for Chicago head coaching job. Israel Wolford getting a request to interview for the OC job in Chicago. So clearly the Cardinals are doing something right in the aspect of coaching staff. And that's something that I think is going to be a big challenge for JG, because he's talked about last year, one of the biggest positives he's had was we kept everybody together. Now you've got at least 4 positions that are changing.
Right at the end of the season, he came on the Burns and Gambo show for his last weekly interview and had discussed how he mentally prepares to lose coordinators, because that's part of the game. And he said, you don't want to think too far into the future. You don't want to plan too far down the line and expect that you're going to lose somebody, because you might not.
Yeah.
The expectation at the end of the offseason was maybe the Cardinals would lose Drew Petzing. and they didn't.
Yep.
So you don't want to put all of your cards in one hand and hope that that works out for you. So Jonathan Gannon lucked out on this one, but it'll be interesting to see as the seasons go on, especially for somebody like Nick Rallis. He's going to get a lot of attention. He's going to get a lot of eyeballs, and maybe he'll be gone next season, depending what he can do this year. But that's somebody down the line that worries me if the Cardinals lose them.
You know how he could get a lot more eyeballs on him? If the Cardinals go out and make a huge, massive trade for Myles Garrett to really help him out.
Yeah.
Because that is on the radar. After Myles Garrett decided, hey, I'm going to request a trade.
It is on the radar for the Cardinals, and it is a move that they can do. We know that they have a lot of draft capital stocked up for them. That's something that Monty Austin-Fort really prides himself on. We saw the Steve Keim era go out there and make a lot of blockbuster trades.
That was guys that are past their prime.
Exactly. And that was kind of expected with them, is that they're going to go out there if a big name hits the market, they're trying to go and get them, or at least make some sort of push to get them, and they cared a little less about their draft capital. We haven't seen Monty go out there so far and make any kind of big powerhouse move that involves them giving up a lot of draft capital or paying one specific player a ton of money. We haven't seen that either. And that's exactly what Myles Garrett would demand.
Yeah.
A ton of money and a ton of draft picks.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I think, so I did a little bit deeper a dive just to kind of see how it would all work, what would be a trade comp. And I go back to, and you can tell me how accurate this is, 2018 Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
Couple of firsts, some other picks thrown between each other. And then you have to give him an extension. You're in your third year of a huge year. That's a huge year. And I know it's always talked about pivotal year, big year. Like, third year of a rebuild, this is where you've got to get to the postseason. You can't keep flashing that, we've got potential. We can be 6-4 and then not make the playoffs. No, you've got to go for it. This would be one way that you are going for it. You've got to be aggressive. Maybe it doesn't work out, but you've got to kick the tires. You've got to call, or maybe the trade doesn't work out, materialize, whatever, but you've got to be calling Cleveland. What is it going to take? Is it going to take 2 firsts and a player? Would you be fine throwing in a Trey Benson or a Michael Wilson or a younger player with some upside? Maybe. I probably would.
Yeah, and you're going to have to give up somebody like that because the Browns didn't want to trade him. That's the big thing, too. The Browns aren't trying to get off of him. He's trying to get off the Browns. In his statement, he said, I came to the NFL to win Super Bowls and win championships, and I haven't been able to do that here. And essentially, if you read between the lines, saying, I don't think that's going to be a possibility for me for the next few years. So I need to go find somebody else who will treat me the way that I want to be treated and give me the ability to win Super Bowls. All of that being said, I don't see the Cardinals as a contender for Myles Garrett. They have what the Browns would probably want for him. I just don't think the Cardinals are willing to give it up, especially when at the beginning of the season you saw how good they could be, what their options were. And they ended up not achieving on them, but you can sort of go back if you're them and bank on the fact that you saw what a good team could look like.
Yeah.
And now, once again, you're adding a full season, hopefully, of Darius Robinson back into the mix. You're adding a youthful bunch of players in the draft, and you're hoping that that can sort of sum up for Myles Garrett. I'm not saying I think that does. I don't think that makes up for Myles Garrett. He's one of the best players in the NFL. I just don't see this move happening for the Cardinals.
Do you think it's more because the Cardinals aren't willing to give that up, or because Myles wouldn't want to come to Arizona?
Because the Cardinals aren't willing to give it up.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I think if you go out there now for 2 firsts, you've got a middle-of-the-road first-round pick this year. You're making a trade like that, you're banking on a late first-round pick. Fine. Take it. That means you're bringing in a future Hall of Famer who's clearly got some left in the tank. You make that move. But where I'm going now is, does he think that Arizona is that close? And I don't know.
He's been linked to the Dallas Cowboys already, not because of what the Dallas Cowboys have to offer, but that's home for him.
Yeah.
That's where he could feel comfortable. If you want to win Super Bowls and you're going to Dallas, I question you a little bit right there. Especially because they have a new coaching staff. You have to feel comfortable in what they've built around you. You have to feel comfortable in Matt Eberflus. Just felt myself get a little nauseous right there. But that's what you have to feel comfortable with. I don't know if Myles Garrett would feel comfortable with that. Another team that jumps out to me, sorry to say it, Cardinals fans, it's the Washington Commanders.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or you go to the Rams.
and fill a gap there. Yeah. But speaking of the Rams have their own issues. I mean, they just announced yesterday that they're putting Cooper Kupp up on the trading block.
And Cooper Kupp announced it.
He announced it, but Kupp didn't want to be up on it, which you could tell from his statement, and instead saying the Rams are trading me and they've informed me that they're trying to get off of my contract and I'm not happy about it, but thanks to the franchise.
Can you imagine Cooper Kupp in the slot with Marvin out wide?
Yeah.
That'd be really fun.
Yeah. I mean, I can.
But it won't happen.
No, it won't happen. And he's a little too injury prone and he would demand a lot of attention. I mean, before the start of last season, he would have gotten a lot more in trade capital. After this past season, you kind of saw the emergence of Puka Nacua and taking over that role from him as sort of the number one wide receiver on the team. All that being said, Kupp is still a phenomenal wide receiver when healthy and makes some incredible catches. I mean, he was the Super Bowl MVP the year that they won. So he looked great in Cardinal red. I just, once again, don't see it happening. But I would love an in-division switch like that. Oh, yeah, that'd be fun. I love those.
That'd be fun. But I think, okay, so you mentioned Cleveland's unwillingness to try to trade Myles. I think this is going to get a little iffy here.
You think it's going to get ugly?
Because, I mean, Myles even, it was reported, I think, by ESPN's Jeremy Fowler that it's not about money, it's about winning. And you look at what Andrew Berry, general manager and executive vice president, said during the Senior Bowl. We envision him going from Cleveland to Canton where his career is over, or when his career is over. Pretty sure Myles Garrett talked about how that is not, my desire is to win and compete on the biggest stages. Or my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. And he talked about how, I want to win Super Bowls. Like, used his own GM's words against him in his statement to just absolutely let it be known he wants to go elsewhere. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out. Maybe at the end of the day, he signs an extension and we don't even care about this anymore. But it is. Here it is. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. I would call that a clapback.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You're taking verbatim what they said and switching it around to how you feel. So it could get ugly. I think if they find a good trade destination for Garrett where they feel like they're getting enough back in return, then the Browns have a lot of holes. Browns have a lot of gaps. They're a team that consistently this year was at the bottom of the pack. And you can't say Deshaun Watson coming back fixes all of their issues, because it doesn't.
No.
So getting a little bit of trade capital back, or getting some young players back, getting a little bit of youth back, a little bit more athleticism, the Browns can't complain about that.
No, definitely not. All right, real quick before we wrap, Senior Bowl just happened this past week. Who were some of your standouts? Honestly, Cardinals, there was a lot of prospects they could have looked at, especially on the defensive side. So who's a name that you were impressed by, stood out, and give me a little bit about him?
We both had our eyes on the same person heading into the Senior Bowl. And I think it's because of that trending social media video we all saw right there. Marshall, because that is what everybody assumes is going to bring NFL talent.
Yep.
Demolishing in a run blocking exercise. And you wrote a wonderful article up at arizonasports.com right now.
Check it out.
Highlighting just how he would fit in the Cardinals defensive room.
Yeah.
And it's obvious because he's athletic. He doesn't have a strong build. Actually, came out as wide receiver
Good old
originally. Moved him on over to edge. Figured it out over there. So he's got a little bit of a smaller build, but he has a more athletic frame.
Yep.
So it's sort of figuring out, where can you play him? Do you drop him back into a little bit of a spy role? Does he specifically come off the edge as a pass rusher? That's how they've been using him at Marshall. Also, for the Cardinals' sake, with a lot of run game, if you want to give Kyler the ball a little bit more, then you have the opportunity on the other side of the ball to open things up in this defense more than we've seen the Cardinals do so far. My sort of NFL comp for him is a Leonard Floyd. He's somebody that I think fits that position well, but maybe can't be as much of a rotator piece in a defense as we've seen him be. We've seen Floyd jump around to a few different NFL teams. It's because they're trying to figure out where they can utilize him more specifically. I'd say Floyd's a little bit more athletic and a little bit of a bigger build. Yeah. But close comp.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Mike Green was definitely the standout for me too. 17 sacks, 23 tackles for loss, three forced fumbles across 13 games last year. That alone was like, all right, you've got to watch this guy. Then you watch what he does and just absolutely obliterates tackle. Oh, my Lord. Yeah, he's got to be on the radar. Obviously, a premium talent, I think, and like you said, Marshall, I think that's the holdup for a lot of people is, has he played against enough premium talent to warrant a first-round pick or a high first-round pick? I think he's a first-rounder. It's just, where's he going now?
And he had transferred out of a Division I school to head over to Marshall. And that's when you saw his numbers and his productivity in college really jump up. So then is that a testament to the fact of, he couldn't really play at the NFL level over against Division I schools, but now he can, now that he's at Marshall? That's always the holdup with those kind of guys. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on. And the Combine is a place you really start to look at that.
Oh, yeah. One more shout-out, just because he's a local guy, and it's another name I'm going to absolutely butcher. Shout out to Arizona Wildcat tackle Jonah Savatanea. I think I said it right.
You've really given yourself some tough names.
I haven't helped myself, but he deserves a shout out. So if I butchered it, I'm sorry. You're still getting a shout out. I thought he had a really, really strong Senior Bowl, not only as a tackle, but moving in his guard. And I think that's another thing that the Cardinals definitely are going to look at. They love versatility. Why not look at a guy who's right down the road in Tucson? So definitely some guys that are standing out. I think those are my top two. I know Walter Nolan was another guy we talked about too. So there's going to be options for the Cardinals at 16 and beyond if they want to trade down, add some more picks. That's kind of where I'm leaning towards is trade down, get a pick or two, get somebody that's still going to be in that range on your big board and keep it moving.
And early with their second round pick, somebody I'd keep an eye on also out of Ole Miss is Princely Amunimelon, because he really has seemed to click in a athletic role that you watch his speed and you're like, oh crap. Okay, he can really figure it out. He's not going to go first round. He's probably going to go early, mid, second round, and that's where I'd keep an eye on. Cardinals pick 42. Right in that ballpark. Yeah. Keep an eye on him to go right around there, and I'd love to see the Cardinals go after somebody like that.
All right. Well, keep an eye also on Lauren. When she's Burns and Gambo producing.
And as I'm getting ready to write everybody's NFL draft profiles, so those will be dropping soon.
All right. But yeah, with that, we are going to wrap it up. Thanks for stopping by once again. I'm Tyler Drake. Follow me at TDrake for sports. Follow Lauren at Colville_Lauren. Follow the show at AZ Cards Corner. We will be back hopefully next week and every week after that to bring you some consistent podcasts. We're back in the lab, so we'll be bringing you more content as the weeks roll along, so we get towards the combine, get towards the draft, and finally get back towards training camp, the regular season, preseason, all that fun stuff. But until then, keep it locked here, and we will see you next time.